Welcome to the 15th chapter of the book of 1 Kings. Now that we are into kings other than Solomon and Rehoboam, his son, need to mention that from this point on, you can also find a corresponding history of the kings, which goes more into detail on the kings of the north of Israel than this First Kings does, and Second Kings. And that is in the second book of Chronicles. And I already went through the second book of Chronicles quite a while ago because I did that before I went into the prophets. I believe I did it before, not after, because I wanted everybody to see a history of what was going on with these kings. And Second Chronicles was excellent for that. So you can go to the video seminars and go through Second Chronicles and see a little bit extra of what it has about the kings of Israel. It begins in verse 1. I'll read it in Greek for a verse. Ke ento oktoke dekato eti vasilevontos Yerovoam iu navat vasilevi avia eos Rovoam epi euthan. In the 18th year of the reigning of Jeroboam, remember IJ is Israel Jeroboam, the son of Nabat, king up north, Abiah, Abijam, King James. I think it has Abijah. Some Bibles have Abijah, others Abijam. He was the son of Rehoboam, reigned over Judah. In 3 years, he reigned in Jerusalem, Tria, not very long. Evasilev, the basil, has to do with reigning, a king, something to do with the royalty. In the name of his mother, Mitros, maternal comes from that, was Maha, the daughter of Avessalom, not Absalom, but Avessalom. And he, Aviam, went in the sins of his father, Rehoboam, which he did before him. In his heart, Carthia was not perfect with Kiriu, the Lord Theu, his God, as the Carthia of David, his, and I added grandfather because it uses the patros for paternal, comes from, uses this for, it could be the grandfather, great-grandfather, and the father, but so I put it in italic so you can get a little better idea who he was. But on account of David, the Lord his God gave to him a vestige in Jerusalem, that he should establish his children after him and establish Jerusalem, as David did the upright thing before the Lord and did not turn aside from all which God gave charge to him, David, all the days of David's life, except in the matter of Uriah the Hittite, who was a man who David had relations with his wife when he was fighting against a city, and he had Joab put him in the front line so he would die because Bathsheba was pregnant, and he didn't want Uriah to know, and so forth, and we went through that earlier. And war was between Rehoboam and between Jeroboam all the days of his life. Polemics of his life. Now, I don't know who his life would be, Jeroboam, because it's talking about Abiah. And the rest of the words of Abiah and all the things which he did, behold, are these not written upon the Vivliu, a scroll of the words of the days of the kings of Judah, which this book is? And there was war between Abiah, and between Jeroboam. And Aviah slept with his fathers, and they entombed him in the city of David. And Asa, his son, reigned. Now, I'm not sure. I think he didn't live wasn't very long. And it goes in here. Well, now Asa, in the 20th year of Jeroboam, king of Israel, Asa reigned over Judah. And 41 years he reigned in Jerusalem. And the name of his grandmother was Maachah, the daughter of Avessalom, the same. And Asa did the upright thing before the Lord as David his, now I put here forefather because it's past the grandfather, his great-grandfather, but I put forefather. And he, Asa, removed the mystic rites from the land and sent out all the practices which his fathers did. So these people were getting into idolatry early on. And he removed Maachah, his grandmother, so as to not be ruling, as she observed a convocation in her sacred grove. So she was an idolatress. And Asa cut off her retreats, and you can see down here the things to bow to, and burnt them in fire at the rushing stream Kidron by Jerusalem. But the high places he removed not, except the heart of Asa was perfect with the Lord all his days. And Asa carried into the house of the Lord the monumental pillars of his father and the monumental pillars of silver and gold, and he carried into the house of the Lord silver and golden vessels. So he brought whatever these monumental pillars were made, he brought them in more things of value into the temple. And there was war between Asa and between Baasha, the king of Israel, all their days. And Baasha reigned after Jeroboam. And Baasha, king of Israel, ascended against Judah. So he comes down toward, and he built Ramah, a city towards Judah in the south there, so as to not be going forth and entering to Asa, king of Judah, a city that he could prevent people from going and worshiping in Jerusalem. And Asa took all the silver and the gold being found in the treasuries of the house of the Lord, and in the treasuries, and these thesavris, we have a thesaurus comes from that, a treasury of words, and here's the treasury of the house of the king, and put them into the hands of his servants. Took all this money, all gold and everything, and King Asa sent them to the son of Adair, and Hadad is in King James, the son of Tavramon, the son of Azion, the Vasileo Syrias, the one dwelling in Damascus, saying, so they bring this money down they go up to Damascus. And so they said, a covenant between me and between you, and between my Patros and your Patros. Behold, I have sent to you gifts of silver and gold. Come, efface your covenant with Baasha, king of Israel. And he shall ascend from me, he'll leave. And the son of Hadad hearkened to King Asa, and sent the rulers, Archon, of his dynamios, dynamite, these are the derivatives, into the cities of Israel. So he comes down and struck Ijon and Dan up north, and Abel of the house of Maachah, and Henereth by Galilee, and all the land of Naphtali. And it came to pass when Baasha heard that he, Hadad, from Damascus stopped, when he heard of his coming, he stopped the building of Ramah and returned unto Thirsah, which is sort of the capital of Israel at that time. And King Asa exhorted all Judah with no exceptions, got them all going. And they lifted the stones of Ramah and its timbers, which Vasa constructed. So apparently when Vasa, the king of Israel, constructed, and so Judah and the men from Judah all get together and go and start taking all of these building materials. And Asa the king built with them the hill of Benjamin and the Scopion, the height. You can add that to your English derivatives book. A scope comes from that. A Scopion, something to look out on. And the rest of the words of Asa and all his dynastia, you can add that to your English derivatives book. A dynasty, dominion, and all which he did, and the cities which he built. 1. Behold, are these not written upon the Vimeo of the words of the days of the kings of Judah? And this is the book we're reading. Only in the time of his old age, his feet caused pain. And Asa slept with his pateron, fathers, and they entombed him with his fathers in the city of David, Jerusalem, his forefather. And Jehoshaphat, his son, reigned instead of him. So he had a long reign, Asa did. Now we go to Israel, northern kingdom. And Nadav, son of Jeroboam, reigned over Israel in the 2nd year of Asa, king of Judah. And this was before Baasah. And reigned over Israel 2 years. That was the son of Jeroboam. And he acted wickedly before the Lord and went in the way of his father Jeroboam and in his sins and the things which Jeroboam led Israel into sin. And Baasha, who we read about earlier there, the son of Ahiah, over the house of Issachar, besieged against him and struck him in Gavathon, the city of the Philistines. So apparently this Nadab was there in Philistia, so he was killed by this Vasa. And Vasa put him to death in the 3rd year of Asa, king of Judah, and he reigned instead of him, which we read about. And it came to pass, as he reigned, he struck the entire house of Jeroboam, and he left not any that breathed of Jeroboam, until utterly destroying him. And this was according to the saying of the Lord, which he spoke by the hand of his bondman Ahiah the Shilonite, that this would happen. For the sins of Jeroboam, which he led into sin, and in his provoking to anger, in which he provoked to anger the Lord God of Israel. And the rest of the words of Navad, and all the things which he did, behold, are these not written in a scroll of the words of the days of the kings of Israel? And that we do not have, except for Chronicles, which lists both of the kings of the north and the south, Judah and Israel. And war was between Asa and between Vasa, king of Israel, all their days. And then it continues with Baasah. In the 3rd year of Asa, king of Judah, Vasa, son of Ahiah, reigned over Israel in Tirzah, 24 years, quite a long reign. And he did the wicked thing before the Lord and went in the way of Jeroboam, his son of Nebat, and in his sins in which he led Israel into. I put sin because there's no sin here. So we're going through these kings pretty quickly here. Next, chapter 16, we'll go into more on the kings, find out who they are, what they did, if you join us in the next video seminar, which I hope you do. Until then, God bless.